So how do we exploit uncertainty for profit without engineering our own collapse? I mean, that is literally the million-dollar question, right? It's the central dilemma that keeps entrepreneurs and business leaders wide awake at night. You obviously want to seize opportunities and grow, but you also know that one wrong move in a totally unpredictable market and the whole thing can come crashing down. Welcome to our latest explainer. Today, we are completely rethinking risk management. We're throwing out the rigid textbooks and looking at how real, dynamic businesses actually survive and thrive.
Think about a sailor out there navigating stormy, completely unpredictable seas. That sailor can't possibly predict every single rogue wave or sudden shift in the wind, right? If they spent all their time trying to calculate the exact size of the next wave, their ship would capsize. Instead, a truly successful sailor builds a sturdy, flexible ship and develops the skills to just naturally tack against the wind. In this explainer, we're going to look at this exact concept through a really powerful architectural metaphor, building a bridge between seizing the present and surviving the future.
All right, here is our blueprint for today. 1. Seizing versus surviving. 2. The trap of anticipation. 3. The framework of dynamic enterprise. 4. The operating engine. And finally, 5. Defending against the unpredictable. Let's dive right in.
Okay, section 1, seizing versus surviving, the inherent tension. This concept right here is the absolute root of everything we're discussing today. Imagine a constant, grueling tug of war in your business. On one side, you've got this opportunism vector. This is that intense drive to move fast, catch market trends, jump on the newest tech. It thrives on risk. But pulling hard on the other side, you have the resilience block. This is the absolute, non-negotiable necessity of surviving systemic shocks. If you're too opportunistic, you get reckless. You're just burning through cash and disappointing customers. But if you're too focused on resilience, you get rigid and you end up missing literally every golden opportunity. The real magic? It's in balancing the two. Moving to section 2, the trap of anticipation, why prediction fails. So why do our traditional ways of managing this tension usually completely fail for smaller enterprises? Well, it really comes down to a fundamentally flawed philosophy. Think about the traditional approach, the anticipation trap. It's essentially trying to predict and regulate every possible danger by building this massive, rigid wall. It's like our sailor trying to perfectly predict the storm instead of just steering the ship. It completely drains your resources and creates this false sense of security. Because the real dangers, they're always the unforeseen ones that your fancy models inevitably miss. The alternative we need to be looking at is a flexible net, something that actually absorbs unforeseen stress. And that brings us to a really crucial concept, capability-based resilience. The key takeaway here is that we shouldn't be constantly asking, okay, what exact risk is coming next? That's impossible to know. Instead, we should be asking ourselves, what capabilities do we have in place right now to adjust and bounce back when the unexpected inevitably happens? All right, section 3, dynamic enterprise, architectural framework. Let's move from theory to a tangible blueprint. How do we actually go about building this flexible net? Think of your business as a massive suspension bridge. You can't just have a strong deck, right? You need the entire structure working together. You got the foundation, which is your human and social bedrock. You have the operating engine, which dictates how the organization actually moves, learns, and crosses the gap. And you have structural integrity, which dictates how the entire system absorbs violent, unexpected shocks. Let's zoom in on that operating engine. Section 4, the operating engine, how organizations move. This is the deck of our bridge, the actual day-to-day mechanisms of how a dynamic organization moves forward and learns. This engine runs on 3 super pragmatic steps. First up, sensing. This means reading the subtle signals out there, like a sudden spike in a TikTok trend, or maybe just a minor supply chain delay. Believe it or not, small data is often a massive signal. Second is seizing. This is testing the waters rapidly, maybe through a quick pre-order campaign or a limited release. And third, transforming. If the test actually works, you don't just go back to the old way, you permanently update your operations to reflect this new reality. And the brilliant thing is, those 3 steps actually form a continuous loop. Because, resilience isn't about just standing still and taking a beating. It's a continuous, cyclical process of taking external signals and converting them into real forward momentum. It's this higher-order dynamic capability that keeps you completely relevant. But wait, how do we keep from just spinning totally out of control? Well, you use a knowledge fulcrum.
You absolutely have to balance external knowledge, so looking outward at radical market shifts, what your competitors are doing, ecosystem threats, with your internal knowledge. That means looking inward at your own baseline stability, calculating your daily margins, tracking operational errors. If you only look outward, you become totally reckless. But if you only look inward, well, you become obsolete.
So, to safely engage this engine, we need some ground rules. Let's take a breath and look at how we practically apply this day to day. The mantra here is basically test fast, learn fast, but whatever you do, don't crash. Avoid uncritical, all-in enthusiasm. Start with contained pilot environments. Always use phased rollouts. Like, if you run a restaurant and you want to completely change the menu, test 3 products first. Please don't bet the whole farm on a single unproven idea. As a leader, you're constantly monitoring this sort of internal ambivalence meter. You are continually navigating cognitive ambivalence, weighing the massive potential upside of a decision against the very real, sometimes terrifying cost of failure. It really is a direct face-off. Innovation, optimism, that intense drive to adopt new things and move fast, versus resource vulnerability. Maintaining this specific cognitive tension is an absolute superpower for a leader. You need the optimism to drive adoption, for sure, but you must respect the harsh reality of your limited capital, your time, and your team's energy. Balancing this is what keeps your commitments sustainable.
All right, final section. Section 5, defending unknowns, structural integrity. So, we've got our engine humming along, but how do we build the structural integrity to keep our bridge standing when a Category 5 storm hits?
Well, it all starts with your culture, specifically bottom-up communication. Honestly, your cashiers, your couriers, your frontline staff, they are always going to spot operational risks way before the CEO ever does. If leadership only ever talks about profits, employees will just hide the problems. You desperately need an environment where it's psychologically safe for anyone to escalate risk issues instantly.
And that internal trust extends outward to become your absolute greatest shield: social legitimacy. Opportunistic firms tend to obsess over hard financial risks, but true long-term resilience relies heavily on stakeholder trust. If you've built social legitimacy, your customers will actually forgive a late delivery. Your suppliers might give you an extension. But the second that trust breaks, even a minor operational error can go incredibly viral and just destroy you.
Okay, if you take away just one thing from this explainer, make it this. Engineered variability is your ultimate defense against the unpredictable. We honestly don't need better crystal balls to predict the future. What we actually need is better structural variety. Think about a fragile monolith. If you rely on one single supplier, a single revenue source, or one massive client, sure, it might seem highly efficient, but if that one pillar cracks, the whole business collapses. Contrast that with a diverse portfolio. By intentionally designing flexible structures and varied risk portfolios, you can easily pivot your resources in an instant if a single node fails. So, bringing this old bridge metaphor together, the foundation of culture, the towers of knowledge management, the deck of dynamic capabilities, and the cables of diversity, they all have to work in harmony. This dynamic tension we've been talking about, it isn't a flaw, it is the very engine of enduring stability. By moving from rigid anticipation to this capability-based architecture, you literally transform the unknown from a terrifying threat into your greatest driver of profit. So I'm going to leave you with a final question to chew on as you evaluate your own organization's architecture. Just like that sailor on the stormy seas, you absolutely cannot control the weather. So is your business built to merely resist change, just blindly bracing for impact until the wall finally breaks? Or is it built to absorb the storm, learn from it, and use that exact momentum to grow? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope it changes the way you look at navigating the unknown.